Welcome. Today we have something a little bit different for you on the channel. I am here with my friend Paul, an athletic trainer, and he's also an avid hiker. And he's going to go through some of his top leg exercises for hikers. So this is really all about building strength. And before we dive into the exercises, I really want to have you kind of touch on why should we even strength train? Because I know as a hiker, I used to kind of go with the just hike more approach. And I would say over the last 5 years or so, I've really started to build some strength in my legs and my overall body, and it has been amazing. So before we dive in, can you touch on why we're even doing this?
Absolutely. And so that's a super common thing. It's like, oh, if I want to get better at hiking, why don't I just hike more? Which makes a lot of sense. And you're going to get your trail legs under you that way. But what we really want to do is build our top end strength. That way, when we're going up the trail, we don't have to rev the engine, so to speak, as much to be able to do those hard climbs. We all go outside and hike because we want to be outside, right? We want it to be enjoyable. We want to have that dopamine hit, that stress relief. And if we're just grunting up the whole hill, it's not nearly as fun. So if we can build that top end strength to where we're not pushing as high into that intensity as sometimes we might, the hike's going to be so much more enjoyable. We're going to be able to go further. We're going to be able to do harder climbs, and we're just going to have more fun. And that's what this is all about. So yeah, that's why I would say we really need to strength train for our hikes.
Yeah, and I've come to love it. I mean, it's one of my favorite aspects of exercise and working out is lifting heavy weights and building that muscle. It just feels really good, and it obviously supports all the things I love to do outside. Let's get into it.
So the first one we want to do is the Bulgarian split squats. This is so awesome for the glutes, the hamstrings, the quads, and because it's unilateral or single leg, we're really working the hips for balance, which we need while we hike anyways. So how we're going to set up for this is she's going to start pretty much right up against the bench, and we can do this in two ways. We can just take one big step forward and put that back foot up, or if you don't really know what the distance is, we can go by the 3-foot rule where we're just going to take 3 little steps out. The only thing that I don't like about that is everyone's foot is a different length, everyone's legs are different lengths, so find something that feels really comfortable for you. Go ahead and step forward. We're going to drop that foot right behind, and from here, when we're doing our single leg squat, she's going to go down, and what we're really looking for is this knee isn't coming way past our foot, but it's also not back here to where she's like, you know, losing her balance. We want that knee right over the insoles of her foot. And we want this to where it's coming about parallel with the ground. She's going to drive right back up. And the other thing you're going to notice is her hips kind of shift backwards and then back forward as she rises. We also want to make sure our feet aren't in a straight line. We're kind of separating them out just a little bit.
It's hard to hold that.
It's hard to hold. Yeah, these get you really, really quick, which is why I like them. Again, it's hitting the hamstrings, the glutes, the quads, and then we're actually going to add in a little flavor to hit the calves as well. So after we do our set, and we're going to talk about the reps at the end, we're going to pause on the last rep, and from here we're going to do some calf raises. Driving up, driving back down. This hits the soleus, which is the deeper muscle in the calf, which is our sustainability muscle in the calf when we're doing long hikes. These smoke you. Yeah. So I would definitely say start with 2 sets of 10, maybe 12 if you're feeling froggy, go up to 15 and work yourself up to 3, maybe even 4 sets of these. If you're feeling like, oh, I'm super strong, these feel good, we can also add in weights with some dumbbells, kettlebells, just about any weight. Next we have the back squat. And I know it's one of the basics, but it's the basics for a reason. They work the best,
yes,
right?
They're one of my favorite exercises.
Absolutely. So they're so good at building that top end strength that we're talking about. And the great thing of why it correlates over to backpacking is we're carrying weight on our back, which we do when we backpack. So this also helps to strengthen the core, strengthen the spinal erectors, and even the shoulders, which we need to carry those heavy packs, especially if we're going multi-day trips or anytime we just have a heavier pack than what we normally would. A couple key things that we want to talk about with the back squat is where we're going to put our feet, where we're going to put our hands, and then making sure that we're looking at a point. So the first thing we're going to do is as she grabs onto the bar, she gets it on her back. Once she sets up here, these hands are going to stay tight the whole time. A lot of people will like to open their hands. We don't want that. We want to actually pull that bar into our shoulders and keep it on our back and make it basically a part of us. So then she's going to step back right into a nice strong position, and here her feet are just wider than her hips. Again, we all have different lengths of our legs, our femurs, our feet, so this might vary from person to person, but in general, we want our feet just wider than our hips, and our feet are going to be wanted to toe out just a little bit. We don't want it out like this, but we don't also want it perfectly straight. Just a little bit of a tip out. As she starts descending, she's going to drive her hips back into that position and drive up, back strong. The last thing we were talking about is that eye position. She's going to pick a point and stare at it the whole time, and we want that position to be about chest level on ourselves. She's going to pick that point, squat down, and squat right back up. What we generally have a tendency to do when this bar gets heavy, we look down, and then as she squats, if she looks down, her hips are going to rise up into this nasty position here. This is no good for the back. Do you need help back? I was like, maybe we went too far. But that will happen. As soon as it gets heavy, we have a tendency to look down, and that's no good for our back. It's no good for our hamstrings. So make sure to pick a point and stare at it. Go ahead and re-rack the bar. And as far as the reps and sets go, we can do a little bit less reps with a little bit more weight on these. If it's a new movement, we want to still stay with that 10 to 12. But if we have back squat, or as we start to get better, we want to cut these down to about 8 to 10 for anywhere from 3 to 5 sets. And that's where it's going to be the best for specifically backpacking. And if we don't have access to a barbell, or we're not quite feeling up to that, we have a couple options that we can do as well. As easy as with just the legs, no weight. What we can do is jumping squats, where we're getting down into that position, jumping as high as we can, resetting, getting down, jumping as high as we can. And if we do have access to dumbbells, we can get some dumbbells up into what we call a front rack position and just do squats here. We might have to do a few more reps since it's not as heavy, but it will get the job done.
The last exercise that we want to show you is airplanes. You'll need a pretty lightweight. Paul's going to go over it, but this is something I've learned from Paul, and I try to incorporate this into my workout at least once a week because I hated them at first and they're really hard, and you're going to look at this and you're going to be like, that's stupid. But just try it and trust us. It's going to help you a lot.
It works. So anytime you get the little weights out, you know it's going to be really rough.
Yeah.
And this one is, but it's so great because it just builds so much stability into the hips. We use this a ton for all of my athletes across the board, no matter what sport they're doing. This is a staple because it's so potent. And it's perfect for backpacking because we don't think about it, but the entire time you're walking and hiking, you're on one foot. So we should be able to build as much stability into those hips as possible. How we're going to start this is it is going to be all on one foot. So we're going to take the weight in either hand to start with, and we're going to go into a single leg RDL position if we've done those before. And a couple things that we want to keep track of here is we want a straight as line as possible from our head all the way to our heel. We don't want it slouching down. We don't want to bend that knee. We want to keep it up nice and tall. The second thing is we want to keep the hips as level as possible, keeping this hip down right here. That's going to put more tension on the balancing leg. We also want a soft knee bend here. Once we get that good position, she's going to reach out into a rear delt fly, coming back down, switching hands, coming to the other side, switching back and forth. Go ahead and rest.
It requires like all my focus.
All of the focus goes into this, yeah. And the reason why we're switching from side to side and not doing both at the same time is we're taking a lighter weight and we're producing a long lever, which is forcing us to find that balance and stay in a position, which is all the glute med does. And that's what we're focusing on here is mainly the glute med.
Yeah, so don't skip this one. How many reps and sets should we be doing?
Yeah, so this one is going to be 2 to 3 sets, and we want to do actually more reps because it's a stabilizer muscle. So we're looking to 20 to 30 reps per leg. This is going to be challenging. It's going to be hard. If we are falling a lot, a couple things that we might want to try to do is pop the shoes off. I'm a big fan of doing this barefoot so we can start using the strength in our feet. And the other thing is count how many times you fall and make that your challenge. Say maybe we're doing a set of 20 and we fall 3 times. Next time I only want to fall twice, and then once, and then we'll be doing
Yeah, that's what I did. I mean, when I first started doing set to 20, it felt like a lot. And now I can actually get through a full set of 20 without falling. So it is something that you can really see some improvement on, which is encouraging.
And we don't need a lot of weight. You might do this with no weight the first time. She's using a 2.5. Stronger guys that I work with, professional athletes, they only use like 5s, maybe 10s for very strong individuals. You don't need a lot, and it's very, very potent.
So those are some of the top exercises for hikers. I hope you enjoyed this video, got some value out of it. If you want to really dive deeper into hiking fitness, Paul and I have made a program together. Paul is the mastermind behind all the programming. And there is strength, there is endurance, there is mobility and flexibility. It is really the complete program. So we would love for you to join us in that program. Check some resources in the description below. And thank you, Paul, for being here on the channel.
Absolutely.
I'm sure we'll have him back. So yeah, comment below. Paul, he's an athlete. Welcome. Today we have something. Welcome. Can you see me? Can you see me? Is this weird though?
That's worse.